Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre. Today on the show, Charles Yu, National Book Award finalist, writer for big and small TV shows such as Westworld. I didn't know that because, as people know, an elitist like me never watches TV. I had to look this up on Wikipedia. His new novel is Interior Chinatown, where the whole world is a TV show of sorts with pre-configured roles, very little agency to break from the mold. Little bit like a little bit like First Life, I guess. Now the I want to break format today a little bit, and I would like to have I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. Here we go. I would like to introduce you to my son Kaleo, who's sitting next to me. He's a robot. He's a robot punk, and normally we introduce we thank the staff of the show and we introduce the author. But I want us to get right into the the good groove and get a little taste for Charles's enormously awesome, powerful storytelling. Um, Kaleo has prepared a reading from the book How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe. And this book resonated with me very, very deeply. It's about a father son relationship. They built a time machine together. The son chooses time machine repairman as a profession later after his father disappears, and he's trying to find his missing father, possibly using a time machine, possibly not. His mother, meanwhile, is in a senior citizen home, reliving the same 1 hour dinner conversation on repeat. That is an option that you can purchase in the world that Charles created here. Um, and yeah, so the main protagonist of How to Live in a Science Fictional Universe may or may not be Charles Yu himself. And that's about the setup. So let's hear a few minutes of the book read by an avatar who may or may not be my son. Here we go.
People rent time machines. They think they can change the past. Then they get there and find out causality doesn't work the way they thought it did. They get stuck in places they didn't mean to go, in places they did mean to go, in places they shouldn't have tried to go. They get into trouble, logical, metaphysical, etc. That's where I come in. I go and get them out. I tell people I have a job and I have job security. I have a job because I know how to fix the cooling module on the quantum decoherence engine of the TM31. That's the reason I have a job. But the reason I have job security is that people have no idea how to make themselves happy, even with a time machine. I have job security because what the customer wants, when you get right down to it, is to relive his very worst moment over and over and over again, willing to pay a lot of money to do it too. I mean, look, my father built a sort of semi working prototype machine years before pretty much anyone else had even thought of it. He was one of the first people to work out the basic math and the parameters and the limitations of life in the various canonical time travel scenarios. He was gifted, or cursed, depending on how you look at it, with a deep intuition for time, an ability to feel it inside, viscerally. And he still spent his whole life trying to figure out how to minimize loss and entropy and logical impossibility, how to tease out the calculus underlying cause and effect. He still spent the better part of 4 decades trying to come to terms with just how screwed up and unfair it is that we only get to do this all once, with the intractability and general awfulness of trying to parse the idea of once, trying to get any kind of handle on it, trying to put it into the equations, isolate into a variable the slippery concept of onceness. Years of his life with my mom, years and years and years down in that garage near us, but not with us, near us in space and time, crunching through the calculations, working it out on that chalkboard we mounted on the far wall near the tool rack. My father built a time machine, and then he spent his whole life trying to figure out how to use it to get more time. He spent all the time he had with us thinking about how he wished he had more time if he could only have more time. He's still doing it for all I know. I haven't seen him for some number of years. I would be more precise, but I can't. Or really, I won't. I don't feel like being more precise about it. Some number of years. Some number.
Thank you, Kaleo. That was Kaleo reading from Charles Yu's 2010 novel, How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe. You are tuned into the Second Life book club today. My guest is Charles Yu. The show is produced by Strawberry Linden with big thanks to Marianne McCann, Arden Schwartzman, Brett Linden, Kralos, Silas Merlin, Patch, and all the moles. And now I would like to welcome Charles Yu. How are you? You look splendid. Charles, can we
Hello.
hear you?
Hi. Yes.
Ah,
Hi. Thank you. Well, that if I look splendid, it's thanks to you,
yeah.
and others that I know put a lot of work into this. So thank you for both designing my body and helping me sit on this couch in a in a somewhat functional way. And thanks to Kaleo, that was a beautiful reading. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I mean, I think my son is an excellent reader. Again, we don't know if it is my son or not. Today, we're going to talk about all your books. I didn't read The Third Class Superhero. I didn't get that in time. So that's your first novel. So we're going backwards a little bit, starting with the science fictional universe we're talking about right now, and then move our way up to your current novel, Interior Chinatown. I was wondering because I was saying, Kaleo may or may not be my son. There is a Charles Yu in How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe. Is that Charles Yu? Is that you?
May or may not be to steal your line. Um, I think
It's a
there are
father-son story. I mean, I told everybody, I'm so moved by this story. The father and the son, they have a difficult relationship. I mean, it's very layered. It's all about determinism versus free will, a theme in your books. But if you are a father, um, and I'm struggling with this too, with my teenager to kind of motivate a teenager. It's so multi-layered, and I'm just wondering if is this, how much of this is you, this uh time machine repairman who frankly goes a little bit the safe route, I guess, aims not totally low in terms of career. I mean, time machine repairman sounds actually pretty cool, but there may have been more out there, and his own father struggled with that. His own father struggled with feeling stuck in a job, in a routine.
Yeah, exactly, and that's part of both the danger, but also the necessity of writing, for me anyway. And this was my first novel, not my first book, but my first novel, because the book previous, you mentioned, Third Class Superhero, is a story collection. So, like a lot of first novels, it's somewhat semi-autobiographical. I guess that's redundant. It is, it is emotionally. It A lot of the emotions and the interior monologue comes from a Charles Yu that is somewhat empirical, but then again, as I begin to write it, it starts to diverge, into its own alternate universe. So I guess that's how I describe it. It's a tangent, to borrow some of the terminology of the book. It's a tangent universe to this one, but it 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 didn't. The writing of it didn't get going until I started to really write from a place of a more personal and somewhat painful place at times, and not always painful, but just to really ground it in something interior. I had to sort of draw on my own upbringing a bit, and then it does go away from my actual life and my family's life, and it also became a very tricky question, because my parents, after a few months, were like, "Is this supposed to be us?"
I was wondering, because I mean, you ship off your mother into an old folks' home where she repeats the same dinner hour, the happy dinner hour, the one happy hour of everybody sitting at the table and getting along. I mean, I know a lot of people who would want that. It reminded me a little bit of Fahrenheit 451, where the wife always sort of has this sitcom life where she plays with her holograms there, and relives that, and your father is struggling with figuring out, is there more in him, and that kind of ambition. But what I said in the onset, and even before we went on the air, is what resonates with me is that I can see, and also in your other books and your stories, is there are protagonists who are often driven, they're driven by fear of failure. I mean, this is really nothing unique. I would say if you're not at some point in your life driven by the fear of failure, there's something wrong with you. But um, your characters really struggle with that, and they don't aim for the big goal or for the world because of this fear. And I'm wondering, you're Asian American, and interior Chinatown, we get a little bit more into it. And the cliche about Asian Americans is that their parents drive their kids a lot. There's a lot of very high expectations. Maybe that's true for all immigrant families. Um, is that also something that is uniquely your experience, you would say, or an Asian American experience?
I definitely, I can speak to my own experience, and then of course I did write a book, Interior Chinatown, that is trying to somewhat generalize a bit. So, but speaking from my own experience, it definitely, I felt a lot of pressure, and I felt a lot of high expectations from my parents, and when I was growing up, that wasn't very much fun. I think now that I have the benefit of hindsight, and I'm a parent of 2 middle schoolers myself, I am a huge hypocrite, because now I put a lot of pressure on my kids. But
that's exactly where I'm getting at, because I'm exactly in that same boat. I pushed violin on my son. I admit that early on, because I saw this talent, and I was always looking, do it, just the consistency, just the minimum. Elfbiter in the chat says tiger mothers. We're tiger fathers, Charles. We're tiger hypocrites. But then how do you get this balance right? I mean, this is what I was reading in your stories, is the pressure can very much have, from a parent's point of view, totally unintended consequences that kids just totally opt out. They go like, I've had it with this. Can I swear on this show? Oh, it's my show. SHIT. But you didn't do that.
Well, I did and I didn't. I mean, I think you're right. I don't know. If someone knows the answer to how to get the balance, please put it in the chat, and I'll do that, because it's so tricky. I see the harmful effects of too much pressure on my own kids, but I also sometimes am worried about overcorrecting and actually being too soft on them, because I think in general I'm probably a bit softer. It's a generational thing, I think, and also a function of my parents were the immigrants. I'm, the American, and raising kids that have only, lived here in America where I am. So I think it's a little bit different culturally in our house than it was for me growing up. My parents came over, my dad came on an engineering scholarship, and they came over with, like a lot of people, no money and really no one here that they knew, into a country that wasn't, exactly friendly to them, and probably pretty bewildering and scary for them. And they built a life which is really inspiring. And I don't think that I'm tough enough to have done what they did. And so I'm the beneficiary of a lot of things that they did for me. But at the same time, you know, even as they're doing that, I think this kind of gulf between us is growing. And that's a lot of what I was trying to write about in How to Live Safely, is this feeling that, you know, the father and son have this deep love for each other. And actually, you know, it's a conversation over time, over many years. You know, I still talk to my dad multiple times a week on the phone, and even during the pandemic, we stay close, and it just feels like this kind of overlay of like all the things that I remember being a kid and a teenager and a young adult, and now as, you know, a dad myself. I just have a different perspective on those memories. So I'm not sure. I strayed very far from your question, but I don't know the
No,
balance.
this
I don't know how to get it.
no, this is really wonderful, and again, I mean, the conversations here on the book club, they're wide ranging, they're very fluid. I have a run sheet, and usually 5 minutes into the show, I throw it on the floor. It's the you know, the parachute, and then I'm cutting my own parachute. But that's I think I know how you feel. We have some comments here in the chat via live from Hawaii. My wife is from Hawaii, so I know a lot of we have a lot of Asian friends from Hawaii that she grew up with, where the story is very, very similar. Um, that 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 you're talking about, and what you're actually referring to, I think there is a technical term. It's called jellyfish parenting. When you
Hmm.
overshoot the goal, when you're like very strict, and then you know you wake up in the morning, go like, I was too strict, and then you go the other way. But
Hmm.
Wayalai says here in the chat, she says, this sounds like the bad Asian confessions bit on the Asian Enough podcast. I'm not
Hmm.
familiar with this podcast. Sounds interesting. Liam says in the chat here, he says, kids are sort of proxies for time machines. You can relive your life through them.
Yeah.
That is a pretty good comment here, because that's also something that is sort of woven into your story, and in the sci-fi book.
I think it's so true. And I do it. And then my kids have the added, uh, I don't know if it's not a benefit. The added layer of their dad is a fiction writer who's, I'm not mining them for material, but they can, they can tell when I'm looking at them, and they're just like, stop doing that. Whatever you're doing, I don't like it, because it's basically, you know, it's either too emotional or it's like too much. You know, like you're saying, I'm looking at them as proxies for time machines. I think that's such a great, or as the commenter said, I think it's Liam, but it's so true. And they don't, to do it without their consent is not very nice, because they're like, can I just be a kid? Can you stop narrating in your head about me as we're just eating ice cream? That's all we're doing.
Oh my God, yeah. And then they feel like, Dad, have you put us in these situations here as an experiment to see how we react? And then you just, you type up what we're doing, and then you have your next story going. Uh, One
Right.
of the things before we move on to the short stories here, what is really interesting about your book, there's two quick questions I have. I mean, you start very early on in the book, and it's interesting for a time machine book, for the time machine genre, where you say you cannot. The protagonist states very early on that you cannot change the past. So I mean, that's very important for what you want to convey in the story. And I don't want to give away one big plot point here, but when you, I guess my question is twofold. Number one, there's science fiction in the title, and I have a lot of friends who, I wouldn't call them literary snobs, but they're not really fond of certain genres, and they would walk right by this title because there's sci-fi in the title. Okay. um, and then for the people who go towards the title, go like, whoa, this is sci-fi, and then they start reading like, what, a time machine where you can't change the past? That's lame. I wonder if you have, as a writer, if that is, are thoughts that are in your head. These are basically thoughts that I guess marketing people should have and writers shouldn't. But do you have these types of, where you doubt yourself in terms of plot points or presentation?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Hmm.
Uh, I have a deep anxiety, 10 years later, even from that book, if I'm talking to people that I know are very versed in, science fiction as a genre. And I totally.
Yeah, they
Also,
probably beat you over the head like, "Oh, Charles, are you aware of the sci-fi book? There's an early from 1943 where this and that kind of thing."
there's some of that, and I don't mean to say that people that are really into science fiction have like wholesale disowned me. I've had a huge amount of support from sci-fi writers that I really respect, and I gotten blurbs from people like Charlie Jane Anders and Annalee
Yeah.
Newitz and Daniel Wilson. I just feel like really encouraged. But Jeff Vandermeer has been a huge supporter of my writing, and I don't even know where that came from. It was just this wonderful thing. John Joseph Adams. So I on the other hand, I think it just comes from my own insecurity, because I don't, I guess if you're going to be ungenerous, you could say, well, this is someone who's actually trying to write, I guess you could call it literary fiction,
Yeah.
but dressing it up in genre. And that's not, it's not totally inaccurate. It's just that it doesn't come, as you said, I'm not making a marketing decision, or nor am I trying to get both of something. In fact, I think the danger is actually slipping between the cracks. Like I think you hinted at, there were a lot of people that probably dismissed that book, initially, or just forever,
Yeah.
just saying
Yeah.
this is not serious. This is not serious.
I
And
mean,
other
this is
people,
something
yeah.
I'm going to give this book, and the German translation is excellent. I'm going to give it to my father for Christmas. My father reads, but my father will look at this title and be like, yeah. And I go, just read it. Maybe I should just blacken out the title. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Stranger Nightfire here in the chat says Harlan Ellison demanded that the words SF, sci-fi, or science fiction appear nowhere on the covers of his books because it would hurt sales. That's Harlan Ellison. I'm not familiar with this particular story, but I would also venture to guess that Harlan Ellison also probably wanted to be maybe accepted by maybe the literary folks who would dismiss certain genre fictions, I guess.
It
Yeah.
does, yeah. It seems like for some people it's a concern, and other people it's not a concern. And I would say the thing that I've learned in almost 20 years of writing fiction is that there are so few things that, it's so infrequent that I find a story that both I think it's interesting enough to try, and that ends up working out in my efforts, that I can't be, I can't change sort of what's coming to me and what my style is. For better or worse, it's developed over time, and it's my
Yeah.
natural inclination, and that it is what it is. And if people pass it by on either side of that divide, the literary genre divide, whatever it is, then no, it's too bad, and I wish they wouldn't. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we have a stranger here just came on the stage. That's what happens sometimes here on the Second Life Book Club. We had just had a guy in a 70s button-up shirt and a transistor radio appear on stage. We love this. It's an open place. The Second Life Book Club is open 24/7. Weird stuff happens. My son is sitting next to me. A drone is over my head. And our guest is Charles Yu, writer. And you just answered a question from the audience here. At what age did Charles start writing fiction and know when he wanted to be a writer, and how supportive were his parents? That's actually also maybe in relation to the earlier question. So real quick, did you know this from an early age, and was it an issue for your parents who wanted you to be a, I don't know, doctor, lawyer?
Doctor.
See, I knew it. Yeah, of
They
course.
wanted a doctor. I knew I wanted to write, or I started writing things as a kid. 8, 9 years old, I started writing poems, and in college I went to University of California at Berkeley. They don't have a creative writing major, but they do have a minor. So I minored in creative writing, and I took, basically what that meant is I took about 6 poetry workshops where I got to, write poems all semester and submit them and have them read by my peers and by the professors. And so that's what I did in college. It was a big issue for my parents. I mean, I did, as I saw another comment from Liam Lord, that I majored in molecular and cell biology at Berkeley. The goal, I was pre-med. I ended up applying to medical school, and I was not admitted to any medical schools. So, which is a good thing for any hypothetical patients that I would have had in that alternate universe where I got in. And it's also a good thing for me because I think I would have been pretty unhappy. But yeah, it was meant to be. I never had my heart in it. I think my parents sort of realized it after a while. So I ended up going to law school. And during law school, I didn't write at all. But when I graduated, I started writing short stories. I had started reading short fiction collections at the local bookstore when I was supposed to be studying for the bar. I would go instead all summer. I would just go and read. I'd go to Borders, which was this chain here in the U.S. If anyone remembers Borders, I loved it. They had a huge selection. You could sit there in the cafe. I'd buy coffee and muffin, and I'd read short story collections because I was a broke student, and then I started writing short stories. So that's I think at that point my parents I was too old for them to have an opinion, either way. So they were more supportive. They're just like, well, that's great that you're doing that, cool, as long as you can support yourself. So.
It's funny because I have a lot of friends in the music business and I think writers probably have the same experience, even though you might be very, very successful. If what you're doing in the artistic field is so outside of the margin of what your parents do, they appreciate what you do, and they still, I mean, I have friends in this where their parent, and they're 40, 50 years old, they're very successful. The parents still ask, so when are you gonna get a real job? I mean, not verbatim, but kind of like that. I mean, we're talking about musicians or writers who make a good living for a long time and have arguably proven that they're fairly stable with what they pursued, and but in the realm of the parents, it's still an esoteric sort of pursuit, a pursuit of leisure or something, I guess. I mean, this is sort of very, I think, widespread if you don't come from a background of artists. Now, you were talking
Sure.
about your short stories, and people in world, let me know if you would like me to read one of Charles's short stories so that I don't keep gushing over Charles, because I have turned into a super fan. People of the audience here in the book club knows that Matt Ruff is my god, but Matt Ruff has been temporarily replaced by Charles Yu. I have to say, I'm sorry, Matt.
Wow.
Matt is,
Thank you.
yeah. Well, Matt, Matt abandoned me. He went to television, and so did you. And we're going to ask about this too. I would like to read a short story called First Person Shooter, because it is short, but it's also very funny. But before we read that, and I'm going to get up here and stand here in front of the audience and read. Are people into this? Let me know in the chat. Charles, those short stories are amazing. You end with a short story that is somewhat dark. The theme is suicide. I'm wondering how does that feel when you? I mean, there's a certain melancholy in all of your stories, but a subject like suicide, is there what goes through your mind in the thought process before you commit to it, especially at the end of this book called Sorry, Please, Thank You. So it's the last story. It's kind of a bold move, I guess, to end on such a dark note.
Yeah, bold and maybe not so wise in terms of drawing readers to it is a downer for sure. And I think I was thinking about loneliness not a lot. The first story in that collection is called Standard Loneliness Package, and it's a sci-fi story where you can outsource your experiences to people in India who will live them for you. So if you have like a root canal, some operator in India will live that 15 minutes or not 15 minutes for root, like 2 hours for you, and you'll pay them. And I wrote this in 2008, before the gig economy really, before Uber existed. And so I think in the course of that, there's a few other stories of that collection that are really about alienation and loneliness and isolation, and how technology can bring us together. I mean, obviously here we are in Second Life, but also, what does it do to our sense of our physical bodies? What does it do to our sense of our mental environment, I guess. And so this story originated. It was actually part of something called the Esquire Napkin Fiction Project, which is Esquire mailed out cocktail napkins to fiction writers and said, write a short story on this napkin. The only requirement is it fits on this napkin. And so I thought, I don't know where it came from, but I just thought, what if this is just the story of someone who's really lonely and writes the final thing, on a napkin and leaves it in a bar for someone else to find. So yeah.
And that is the last story. But you mentioned the first story, which is also fascinating, where these negative feelings are outsourced to gig workers in a foreign country, mainly serving richer folks in the U.S. who don't want to feel a root canal, who don't want to feel the pain of a funeral. These feelings are outsourced. There's another story of a designer of a pharmaceutical company that sells a designer emotion. It's hilarious. I'm going to read a short story called First Person Shooter, and that is from Charles's collection. Sorry, please, thank you. Janine is on line 4. There's a finger in housewares. I don't ask what she means because I can't think of anything funny to say, because I can never think of anything when I'm talking to Janine, because I'm in love with her. I tell her I'll check it out and hang up the phone. The whole way over to home and bath, I'm just repeating to myself under my breath, stupid, stupid, stupid dummy. The only thing that makes me feel better is that none of this really matters since I don't have a chance in hell with her anyway. I hang a left at the towel racks, and then a quick right, and whoa! Janine was not kidding. That is definitely a finger on the ground, in the middle of the aisle with all of the slow cookers. This is the graveyard shift at World Mart, biggest store in the human world. I work Sunday through Wednesday and then Friday if anyone calls in sick, which of course is pretty much every Friday. We're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, because keeping the fluorescent lights on for a decade or two until they burn out is actually cheaper than turning them on and off. And that means for 8 hours every night, there are 2 of us in here minding the store, which is roughly the size of 3 city blocks. I walk over to the nearest house phone and call Janine. We should tell Bert. Bert is the manager. At the moment, Bert is not in the store. He's in the parking lot a quarter mile away, listening to Black Sabbath with the windows rolled up in a smoke-filled Pontiac Sunbird. I can smell it from here. Yeah, so tell him, Janine says, and there's something about the way she says it. It's a dare. She's daring me. It's a test. She's testing me. I start to wonder whether, despite all of the stupid things I've said to Janine, I might actually have a chance with her. I hang up the phone, go back where the finger is. I pick it up. Then I feel something cold and sharp tickling the back of my neck, and I almost wet myself. A small yelp escapes from my throat. I turn around to see Janine. I hate everything about her except for the fact that I love everything about her. I don't think I could actually ever want to kiss her so much as I'd want to possess her, consume her, eat her, so that no one could have her. Ha! You should have seen your face, she says, laughing at me, but not quite mocking me. Not quite. Is this how she flirts? I slip the finger into the pocket of my jacket. I don't know why exactly, but I don't want her to see that I have it. A bunch of stuff crashes to the floor. Over in another section. Sounds like toiletries, I say, and we both run toward aisle 97. We stop in mascara, crouch down, and listen to what sounds like shuffling. Janine starts crawling towards lipstick, and I try to grab her ankle, but just end up with her shoe in my hand. She looks back, catches me watching her from behind, then motions for me to follow. We stop at the Maybelline end cap just in time to see someone or something shambling toward a beef jerky sample station. Janine shrieks, and then the thing lets out a groan, and then Janine and I are both up on our feet and running, and we round the corner into eyeliner and come face to face with it, whatever it is. Only it's not an it. It's a her. It's a zombie. A woman. A zombie woman. She's older than Janine. Closer to my age, maybe early 30s. Missing a little bit of her face, but otherwise sort of pretty in a melancholy way. She looks nervous, I say to Janine, but Janine's gone, flat out sprinting, screaming, all the way to power tools. Pretty zombie lady holds up two different tubes of lipstick. One blood red and one that's more of an earth tone. And then I understand. She wants my opinion. I step back, look at her skin, which I guess is sort of a grayish baloney color, and point to the earth-toned tube. Matches your blouse better, I say. She's holding the lipstick in her right hand, which has a hole where the ring finger should be. I pull her digit out of my pocket and offer it to her. She takes it and jams it into the hole where it used to be, and then sort of nods as if to say thanks. She starts to creep over toward accessories. We shop for a while together like this. She picks out a couple of options. I give her my choice. Sometimes she goes with it, but a couple of times she goes the other way. At one point, she stops in front of a mirror and looks at herself, and I'm looking at her look at herself, wondering what is she thinking, and we lock eyes. We're making eye contact with each other in our reflections in the mirror. She's clearly thinking about someone. Me? No. This is crazy. But is it? I don't know. I don't know anything. I didn't even think zombies could think, and I'm thinking maybe she's not thinking. Maybe she's under the control of someone else. Maybe I am too. Pretty zombie lady moves slow, and by the time she manages to pull together a decent-looking outfit, it's 2:15. Just as I realize that I haven't seen Janine in half an hour, I hear her voice booming over the PA system. I'm in firearms! Stay low! I pick up the nearest phone. She's not going to hurt us, I say, my own voice carrying out across the cavernous store. I just hope Zombie Girl understands me. What are you talking about? Janine says. She's going to eat us. She's going to eat our brains. No, I don't think so. That's not what she's doing here. Then what is she doing here? I think she's getting ready for a date. Before Janine has time to process that, I look up and see pretty zombie lady's face on the giant HD screen hanging over home entertainment. Huh, I say, watching her try to figure out the camcorder. What? I gotta go. Janine can hear in my voice that something's very wrong. What's happening? She says. Our friend just discovered House of Dead 2. I approach carefully, stop a few feet behind her. We both stand there watching the demo for a while, limbs being blown off, exploding heads. And when she turns around, I see that in her blank-eyed kind of way, she looks hurt, betrayed. Janine comes marching down the aisle with a hand cannon. Her skinny arm can barely keep it level. She's got it pointed at pretty zombie lady right at her head. The zombie just looks at Janine, unblinking, almost as if she wants to get her head blown off, which I suppose is understandable. She started off tonight excited for a date, and then she comes in here and sees this game, and now who knows what's happened to her self-image, to her picture of the world. Is there such a thing as a self-aware zombie? Can a zombie realize what she is? Maybe there are degrees of zombification and she's not quite all the way there yet. Maybe I'm part way there myself. I put my hand on top of Janine's and slowly lower the gun. Her hand is warm and full of blood, and I should be excited to be touching Janine, but instead I'm worried about Zombie Lady. She scratches her finger until it falls off again. We all look down at it. The House of the Dead demo is starting over. A bunch of zombie heads explode. Janine's still got the gun in her hand. I'm trying to figure out if this is the best day of work ever or the worst. Why am I so self-conscious? What am I so scared of? It's now or never. Would you like to go to see a movie on Thursday? Are you asking me or her? Janine says. Well, look like she's already seeing someone, I say. Janine looks at me for a long moment like she's trying to look inside of me, almost as if she's noticing me for the first time. Yes, Janine says. Yes, I would. I look at Zombie Lady, who's staring at us, slack-jawed. Whatever flicker of awareness I might have seen behind her eyes a moment ago isn't there anymore. She turns and drags herself toward the exit, and then, with a whoosh of the automatic double doors, she's gone. I wonder if she's still going on her date, I say. I'm pretty sure she's going to find Bird and chew on his brain, she says. Janine and I stand and watch for what feels like a very long time, enjoying the mix of hot and cold air here at the boundary of the store, glad to be on the inside. And that's from Charles's short story collection. Sorry. Please. Thank you. Thank you, Charles, for writing this. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. Oh, am I speaking?
Yes.
Thank you for reading it. I'm glad you read it and not me. I really enjoyed that. I guess you have a background in music and other audio things, right? So that was performed professionally.
Well, semi-professionally. Charles, do you have your can folks hear Charles in world? Please put your in-world voice back on. I'm not sure if people hear you.
Oh,
Charles,
sorry.
these
Am I
stories,
back?
and I think so. Yes, yes.
Okay.
I wrote here on my run sheet what when I discovered you. Actually, Anne Vandermeer, Jeff Vandermeer's wife, told me that I have to read your stuff, and then I got into it and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I mean, you've done a lot of interviews. You've done talks at Google. You've been interviewed on the Daily Show with Trevor Noah for your new book. I have not watched any of them. I Googled it, but but I don't want to. I want to approach this show from sort of my sort of, I don't know, fandom type, or wide-eyed child that discovers something, and also not from sort of an academic level. But I was wondering, is there something that annoys you about commercial interviews? I mean, Interior Chinatown, you're a National Book Award finalist. I wonder what is the relationship with you and interviewers? Do you roll your eyes at sort of semi academic deep psychoanalytical analysis of your work? Do you have to suppress the eye rolling when the questions are superficial? What's that relationship of you and the public and these appearances?
Yeah, it's a really hard transition for me because I.
You mean from reading, like from solitary and then going out on the publicity stuff?
That's hard. That's hard, definitely. The other thing that's hard is talking about my work in a way that, you're right, that is digestible within the span of a regular conversation, or even less than a regular. This is a wonderful format for many reasons, and you can actually, we can talk and we can get into things at a level of depth and explore things. As you're pointing out, usually when you're doing any kind of radio or podcasts, or in a rare case for me, TV, it's a few minutes, and you're expected to sort of kind of
be
give
very
the sizzle.
witty,
Yeah,
the sizzle, and be witty and likable.
Yeah, and that's hard because I don't think it's by any conscious decision to reduce it. It's just by necessity. But I think in the course of a conversation like that, the interviewer and the interviewee have to be concise, and often that loses lots of layers and subtleties of what the actual work is, and sort of you're speaking to people that mostly have not read it or heard about it, and so how do you present it in an interesting way that still feels somewhat true? And so I'm not great at that. I've gotten a little bit better, but my inclination, and my wife has told me that I've gotten better over the years. When I would first talk, when we first started dating, I think I just confused her a lot, because as both a lawyer and somebody who just isn't good at getting to the point, I would just say all versions of everything just to cover my bases. And I've learned to be a little bit pithier, but I'm still, as you can tell, I'm rambling now. But
I hear you loud and clear. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm married to a lawyer. I mean, I'm constantly on trial, and I throw stuff at her, and then she throws 3 different things back at me.
Yeah, but yeah, it doesn't annoy me at all, because one, it's I'm very grateful for any opportunity to talk about my work, and I spend years trying to finish something, and so when I get out there, especially on a large platform, it's really exciting. But I do enjoy all the mix of types of things. I like, the occasional like literary panel that I've been doing a fair amount of this year on Zoom, and then really in-depth conversations like this are my favorite, without a doubt. But I also, there's something kind of fun and exciting about the Highwire Active. I have 5 minutes not to sound dumb and to actually make this book sound appealing. Can I do it? I don't know. I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, I guess a sympathetic host, they probably, I think Trevor Noah is doing a good job, and there's good examples of, and they're prepped in a way where they, I mean, they have you on because there's interest and there's an angle, so it's a very sort of sympathetic sort of environment.
Yes, he in particular, sorry if I cut in, but he in
go
particular
ahead.
was, I felt, not that I've ever felt somebody wasn't trying to help, but I walked out there and I was really terrified because there was a studio audience, and I really, literally thought if I turned my head 5 degrees, I might freeze up completely. So I tried not to look at them. I stared right at his face, and I think he could tell how scared I was. And he had come beforehand to meet me in the green room, and he was really warm and generous, and it actually seemed like he, enjoyed the work. I don't, he's an incredibly busy guy, so I'm not sure how much he got to read, but if he did read any of it, I'm grateful. And then in the interview, it just felt like, both probably the producer that helps prep him, but even he just was trying to help me, do my thing. And I came away just feeling like, oh, what was that? And I never want to do that again. But I think he does a really great job of trying to let book authors in particular, do their thing. Because I've watched a bunch of other interviews that he does. And that was about the friendliest environment imaginable, to do TV. So.
We are always racing. Also, speaking of time, I mean, I could have these shows long, but of course, Linden Lab that runs Second Life, they're shutting off the lights, and our producers are constantly cracking the whip behind me. It's a really terrible work environment. Please let me help me escape from here. No, but it's a wonderful environment. And as a matter of fact, YLI in the local chat says speaking from within an SL avatar is something like growing a beard, and speaking from within that facial protective coating. So I mean, I had authors tell me that they love also this format and the environment. We have a full house today at the book club. I mean, we have to limit it to about 50 for lag reasons, but we have a full house, and I don't see your avatar being scared or sweating, breaking a sweat or anything. So that's good.
Yeah. I'm sweating at IRL, but I'm not. Glad my avatar is not sweating.
So now we're going to do something. We're going to fly without a net, because your current novel is Interior Chinatown. It's an amazing a book with similar themes explored in different ways. People in the book live inside or on a set or in a world that is also a cop show called Black and White, with, surprise surprise, a black protagonist, a white protagonist, and the hero here is an Asian guy who is also on his acting resume. He is Asian guy 1, Asian guy 2, Asian guy in the background. And I was joking before, his father was young Asian male, and then he was old Asian male on the casting sheet. If you could put this premise, tell us a little bit about the premise while I'm prepping the stage, because we're going to do an actual reading of this book. And the book is written like a movie script, I guess, right? Or
yes,
like a play.
The TV,
yeah. And so please tell us what the premise of this book is.
Sure. The book is about a guy named Willis Wu, who, as you said, lives inside of a police procedural show. It's, think Law and Order, but it's not Law and Order. It's a kind of warped version of Law and Order where the racial stereotypes are very reductive. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, watched a lot of shows where I never saw a single Asian. I saw, and when you did see Asians, they were.
And even in Hawaii Five-0, I was just going to put in, but that's 70s. Also, the Asians on Hawaii Five-0 were also, it was not totally full of Asians. all
A
the
show,
time.
right? A show set in Hawaii.
Show set in Hawaii. There you go.
Yeah, and so when you did see them, they're often in either a Chinese restaurant, a Chinese delivery guy, or they're doing martial arts. And so that's basically Willis's existence. He is, as you said, generic Asian man number 3 is where he is in the hierarchy, and his goal is to become Kung Fu guy, which is the highest that an Asian can be in the world of black and white. And so the story is about Willis trying to climb the career ladder, and events ensue that he learns and grows and meets people along the way. And it's also an exploration, I think, of the ways other groups are reduced to flat stereotypes in the medium of TV and film. And so I hope it's got a broader appeal for anyone who either sort of consumes media or has ever felt marginalized. But it is specifically, from the point of view of Willis, and it's his story. So,
and you go back and forth with its. I mean, the presentation, the format is just so wonderfully ambiguous too. I mean, you do this with your short stories too, where it's not really clear. I mean, sometimes the director yells cut, and then they're living their lives, and then they're going out in the suburbs. Then there is a dead person, and is the person really dead? What I found interesting, there's a lot of sympathetic blurbs in the back, but I always felt that, and while it is hilarious, and it is wrenching, and it is sharp and surreal, you know what I thought this morning, Charles? I thought, like, are these blurbs also kind of designed to be on like a movie poster or a TV show? Because I mean, blurbs are what they are. I mean, blurbs are blurbs, but it felt to me that the blurbs here in the back, they're almost part of your presentational conceit, where you leave it very ambiguous. Are we really on a TV set, or where are we actually? Do we have any agency, or do we have none?
Yeah.
So that was. Yeah.
It's funny.
Read the blurbs. I'll tell you, there's something fishy with the blurbs. Okay, so I'm bringing up the stage, and now, Charles, if you could attempt to stand up, please.
Okay.
And we have an actress, Shyla, is coming on the stage. Shyla is going to read the part of the white female cop. Her name is Green, and I'm going to read the part of the. Let's see if I can push us all forward. I'm going to read the part of the black cop, Turner. Now, we had a friend in the audience who, Beppo Benoit. Beppo, if you could come on stage and push Charles forward and push him. I mean, speaking of agency, Charles, I mean, you are now being pushed by the stage manager into the correct position. I also need to tell Kaleo to go in the back.
Thank you, Beppo.
And so Beppo will, and you can attempt this yourself as well. Beppo is coming on stage now. Beppo will teleport you towards the front of the stage where the book is displayed. And while we're doing this, let me set up the reading. So there is, as you said, it's a very black and white show. I mean, the title is black and white. It's a procedural cop show, like Law and Order. The format is very clear, and the formulaic nature of these shows is how you basically weave the real lives, the first lives of these characters. You interweave them, and you basically suggest, like many of your other stories, are we all just in a show? I'm hesitating to draw a comparison to the Truman Show, because that would really diminish what you're trying to do with this book. But I guess there are some similarities. So what we're going to read is a dialogue that happens in a unmarked police car. So Charles, I need you to go a little bit further forward.
Okay.
And face the music, face the script. Just turn sideways, and walk forward.
Okay. Let's see.
Turn with your arrow keys. Yeah. This is the.
Okay. Ooh, am I over?
There you go. Yes, awesome.
Okay.
Now you're facing the Perfect. Beppo is a wonderful stage manager. Thank you, Beppo.
Yes,
Now,
thank
Charles,
you.
you can just remain where you are, and I'm going to
Okay.
move. I'm going to move the stand with the script forward. Oh, don't.
No,
Uh,
I'm
no.
not touching anything. Am I off the
Uh.
stage?
Oh. Yeah, you're off the stage.
Oh,
Beppo, we have to do it again.
I'm
Beppo,
so
bring him
sorry.
back.
I just tapped it once.
Maybe I'll just teleport you. I'll teleport you up, and then
Okay.
just stand in the back there.
So
And
sorry.
no problem. This is the action part. Look, we're such nerds. We're just sitting around talking about books. It's got to be a little bit of action here. So I sent you a teleport,
Okay.
and the
There we go.
teleport will,
Okay.
yeah, it'll bring you onto the stage. Oops, not quite. Let's go backwards.
Sorry, everyone. I'm no less klutzy in First Life, by the way. This is just generally me, so it's
Yeah,
true to form.
what people don't know is that when you appeared on the Daily Show with Trevor Noah, you fell off the stage 3 times. They cut that out, of course, in the segment. Rumor has it. Okay, one more attempt. I send a teleport offer.
Okay, I love all the
Teleport.
suggestions for helping. It's hilarious and very humbling.
It's we've all been there, Charles. We've all been before we've been absorbed into Second Life, before we gave up on our first lives, which is interesting because you talk a lot about in your books also about all sorts of different lives. Um,
Should I turn
we
around
Yeah,
or no?
now turn around
Okay.
just with the left and the right arrow keys, and I'm just gonna walk over here.
Okay. I'm not going to hit forward yet at
No,
all until you tell
no,
me. I'm just turning.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
just turning, and I'm going to keep turning, and I'm going to put the right in front of you. Keep turning, right
Keep
or left
turning.
arrow key.
Okay.
Keep it pressed.
Okay.
Keep it pressed. Keep it pressed. Yes, there we go. And perfect. And
Okay.
that's it. Leave it there. Now, please get your interior Chinatown on. There you go. We're good to. Oops.
Oh,
No.
overturn.
Stop.
Go the
Yeah.
other way. Yeah. There's such a lag that when you said perfect, I had
No,
stopped.
that's it.
But okay.
That's good.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
good. That's good.
Hands off.
Um, and now I would like you to read, please, Charles, also the stage directions, which is basically the interior monologue of generic Asian man number 1, Willis Wu, and he in this scene. There's a dead body on the ground here. I mean, we're taking some liberty. The actual scene takes place in a cop car, and in the cop car, he gets questioned by the cops. Green is played by Shyla, and Turner is played by me. I'm the black guy. She's the white woman. And Willis Wu, in this scene, has already advanced to special guest star. He's special guest star, and you will see, folks, here in the audience, that he speaks with an accent, and the accent is, of course, fake, which is another really cool thing that you're doing here with this book, where his father gets a gig at the TV show, and then he gets laid off from that gig, and then he says, what was wrong with me?" And the casting director says, "Well, it's your accent." And then he says, "Well, I don't have one." And the casting director says, "Well, that's the problem." So again, we're dealing here with stereotypes. These stereotypes are wanted. That's what pays the bills. So let's go and read
Great.
and action.
In the morning, you do the cop show. In the afternoon, you do the cop show. You get your envelope, $90 for being generic Asian man. You train, you stay in shape, you get ready for your next role. Slowly, you climb the ladder. Generic Asian man number 3. Generic Asian man number 2. You practice the words you will have to say. I did it for my family's honor, officer. I have disgraced my family, and now I must pay the price. Without face, I have nothing. Honor means everything in my culture. You wouldn't understand. You climb the ladder. Generic Asian man number 1. You say the words. You train. You stay in shape. You do the cop show. You're close now. Close enough to imagine a different life. Interior unmarked police car. Monday morning, a new week. Black and white up front. You and back. Special guest star.
Let's recap.
You don't have to say that.
Don't have to say what.
Let's recap.
Recapping is important. People like to be sure of where they are.
I'm not saying recapping isn't important. I'm saying you don't have to say, let's recap.
Well, what should I say?
Don't say anything.
Ah, man. Can you believe this?
No, you think. You can't believe it. How much fun they're having. How little they care. An Asian guy is dead, and these two are flirting. It's easy to squander your lines when you know there will always be more tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that.
Fine. To recap, dead Asian guy is dead.
Could be gang related.
No, he would never doing a crime.
Some kind of honor killing then?
Those are common in Chinatown.
They are not. None of this sound like him. Not possible.
Why? Because you say so?
If you no need my help, I go back to restaurant.
Yeah, why don't you do that? And while you're back there, get me a lunch special. Number 5, beef broccoli.
Miles, what the hell? I'm sorry about that.
Turner looks chastened, maybe a little embarrassed. It feels good to have white on your side.
I don't know why I said that, man. That's not really who I am.
You pause to consider this. Green snaps you out of it.
Patrol sweeping the area for eyewitnesses.
All these eyes. Someone saw something.
So, did he have any enemies? Someone he had trouble with?
No way. Green gives Turner a meaningful look.
Are you trying to give me a meaningful look?
Well, this is my thing. My thing is this look.
You should consider getting another thing.
Look who's talking.
What's that supposed to mean?
I'm Miles Turner. My jaw is so strong and sexy.
Should we focus here? Dead guy's still dead. And now older brother missing. Uh-oh. They both turn to look at you.
Older brother? You knew him?
Everyone knew him. Everyone looked up to older brother. He was number 1. No one could ever beat him. Green looks at Turner. Turner looks at Green. They both look at you. You look at them. Green looks back at Turner. Turner looks back at you. What?
What?
Why you guys keep giving each other looks?
You said no one could ever beat older brother.
Yeah, so?
Sounds like possible motive to me.
What motive?
Well, if someone were to knock him off.
There's suddenly an opening. An opportunity.
For who?
Every other Asian man in Chinatown.
I haven't gotten an address yet.
Haven't gotten an address yet.
Actually, I had Kaleo say
Oh,
that, but he missed
I'm
his
sorry.
line. No, that's good.
I didn't know.
Green. Wait, it's a cold reading.
No.
Green, go.
Well, what did you get?
Hold on. Last known contact.
Last known contact was with
Ming Chen Wu.
Green looks at the name, then looks at you.
Wu. Any relation?
We're not all related.
Don't lie to us. Do you know him?
Okay, yes. In this case, I happen to know him. But my point still stands.
Shut up and take us to him.
And then there's the gong sound again. You look around but can't tell where it's coming from.
We actually do have a gong. Where's the gong? What kind of production is this?
It's the lame one.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shyla. Thank you. Thank you,
you.
Charles. This
That's
was a
fun.
reading from Interior Chinatown. And this wonderful stage was built by Arden. This is so fantastic. This is just so awesome. Thank you, Charles. Do you get any, or did you get any pushback for using Asian stereotypes this way? It may be a generational thing. Maybe, I mean, I could imagine that some folks feel it's not appropriate to to use it in a satiric way, in this way?
I mean, I didn't get any actual pushback. I got a lot of sensitivity. You know, my
Mhm.
editor had sensitivity readers read it in house at Random House at Pantheon where I'm published, and I think they were rightfully very careful, and they wanted to make sure that we were thinking about how this would be, received, basically. And I had a lot of anxiety as well. I mean, this passage in particular, I've never read out loud. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be uncomfortable. Writing it, I felt uncomfortable. He's talking in a pidgin language, which
Yep.
it sounds ridiculous, and yet in 2020, I still sometimes see it on TV. A lot less than usual, but there are definitely characters where the Asian character has poor grammar or an accent that is clearly invented. I'm sorry I didn't even try one because I would have messed it up. But
I was actually thinking, just I didn't think about this before, but I was thinking like, okay, will Charles actually play up, this stereotypical accent of someone quote unquote fresh off the boat or whatever you say.
it was hard to write it, and I waffled about whether or not to do it, and ultimately it just felt like it had to be part of the book, to write in this, obviously totally ridiculous grammar that isn't actually accurate. I mean, sometimes, there's some comedians that actually do a very good version of an Asian, like say a Cantonese a Cantonese speaker who's speaking English, or a Filipino American speaking, someone. There's a specificity to a really good impression that you can recognize instantly if you're from that community. And yet in TV, you don't get any of that usually. You get this incredibly sort of reduced TV Asian, right? That's really what it is. It's a thing that doesn't exist anywhere other than TV and film of what an Asian accent is supposed to sound like. So.
And Liam says here, I'm not sure if I agree with that, but Liam says it's like it's similar to blackface if you read like this and with yellowface, but I'm not so sure, because blackface is something that a black person usually doesn't do. I mean, we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about that in the case of popular culture, Charles, that people of Asian origin are pressured to deliver something that doesn't even exist, even, I mean, a specific sort of stereotype, and they can only advance in that stereotype. I mean, the closest, when I lived in LA, I was hanging out with an actor from Germany, and he only got Nazi roles, for example. I mean, that's kind of maybe, I guess, in the Hollywood realm, a similar thing.
It is. I mean, that's definitely, this discussion is really interesting to me, and it's hitting on some of the stuff I was getting. Some of the original inspiration for the book is this idea that Asians are actually required to play a version of their own yellow face, right? They're doing an impression of themselves that comes from a Western gaze notion of it, including the backgrounds, including the architecture. That was one of the fascinating things I learned in researching this book, is that both the San Francisco Chinatown, when it was rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake and fires, and parts of LA Chinatown, they were built by Western or European architects who were putting in features like these kind of curved roofs, or these eaves that are curved, and other sort of stylistic elements that signify this looks like Asia, to the tourist and to the Western gaze, and that has become so incorporated into the idea of it, especially on screen, that now stands in for Asia in a way that if you didn't have that, it wouldn't look authentic. If you actually showed what Chinatown looks like in parts, you're like, oh, that looks like a building in Oakland. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think this.
We have a lot of interesting comments here, and Liam, you're correct. I mean, Liam is pointing out Aunt Jemima as a did blackface. That's correct. So I was just thinking of blackface actually painting your face black, but we're talking about also that in the African American community, people were asked to perform stereotypical roles. There's a great Key and Peele sketch, name escapes me too, where they poke fun at that as well. I mean, yes, absolutely, and Elfbiter is pointing out the history of blackface in minstrel shows. And Stella says here Mickey Rooney played an Asian character.
Right.
She doesn't know what movie that is. We are over time, and this is really awesome. Let me point out. You can sit back down, Charles, if
okay.
you want, by clicking on the couch. There you go. See,
Thank you. I did one thing right.
you'll get a certificate when you leave. We hand out a certificate, and if the camera could please go to this big board here, was Arduin, who built the stage, also put this board together here with a quote from Interior Chinatown, which I think sort of also summarizes this the relationship here with the mother and Kung Fu Kid, who is the main protagonist, Willis Wu, as a kid. And the mother says, "Just promise me something, okay?" And Kung Fu Kid says, "Okay." The mother says, "Don't grow up to be Kung Fu guy," and that's what Kung Fu Kid's goal is here. He idolizes Bruce Lee, and then Kung Fu Kid says, "Okay, I promise." Wait, what? And the mother says, "You hear me? Don't be Kung Fu guy." And Kung Fu Kid says, "Okay, what should I be?" And the mother says, "Be more." And again, this is what we were talking about in the beginning. An expectation which can be stifling when the pressure is exerted is too much. But this is certainly a sentiment that gives the child a free world to kind of aspire to, a world where the child can go beyond those stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
I love it, and thank you, Charles. Any last words? Do we have questions from the audience? I should put the word out. We can hang out for 15 more minutes post game, not on the stream, or hang out post game. People can ask questions in voice. I was going to ask a quick question about my run sheet here about writing for TV. What do you like it? Do you hate it? This is a Frank Zappa quote. Do you like it? Do you hate it? It is the way you made it. Pros and cons about writing and TV.
I will. Can I answer that after I thank everyone briefly, so I don't forget to? I really appreciate everyone who came. I've been looking at the chat when I wasn't struggling with walking. There's so much, so many really interesting comments and questions. And I also obviously have to thank Anne Vandermeer for introducing me to you and Second Life. So I don't know, she's probably not listening, but if she ever reads the transcript, or maybe she is listening. And to Kaleo and to Strawberry and to was it Shiloh that read?
Shiloh, yeah.
And so this was just really fun. And Drax, you're an incredible interviewer. I'd known that from watching your talk with Larry Niven, and I think I was really looking forward to this. So this matched and exceeded my expectations. TV, I do not hate it. I like it very much. It is my new day job. It has replaced being a lawyer with how I, make money from writing. To be really candid, I wouldn't be able to support myself and my family on what I make from my books. I don't write fast enough, and I don't write successfully enough in terms of copies sold. So TV, I'm really grateful to it, and I've developed a lot of skills and enjoyment from it, and it's its own kind of learning curve that I has at times been really difficult and painful, but also really rewarding in a lot of ways to be able to reach a larger audience and tell stories that way. So
this is interesting because this is obviously very subjective, with output. And I mean, obviously, writing books takes a long time. I also, I think in the back of Interior Chinatown, you thank an organization in Santa Monica that supports authors when they have to go into solitary confinement, if you will, to focus on a book. Are you able to I don't know, walk and chew gum at the same time, with a day job, writing in TV, and still pursuing the next novel? Or do you need, in terms of your balance, something else? I mean, the reason also why I'm asking, I mean, I am my main source of income is writing music. Now, I mean, I'm not on tour anymore, but I used to be on tour, and I would need to have a completely different thing as a balance thing, right? So if I were, and I admire these types of musicians, they go on tour, they play, and then for relaxation they play they may play in a country and western band, and for relaxation they play metal or something like that. But they're still doing music. So I'm wondering if you just like after writing, you write for Westworld, you write for big shows, is that like something like where you, oh my God, I just can't put pen to paper anymore?
It is hard because it draws from the same reserve
From the same source, yeah.
Yeah, it does. And so even as it's training my muscles, because there is some transferability, and I don't think, like, for instance, I've been writing this book on and off since like 2013. And part of that, I was a lawyer. And then I switched over into TV writing. And the first couple of years in TV, I didn't get anything done on the book. And it wasn't until I really sat down and said, I need to stop taking TV jobs for a little bit, at least until I can get to a point where the ball's rolling a little bit down the hill. And then I had to start TV up again, for income. But yeah, there were phases where I wouldn't have been able to do both. I mean, if I absolutely had to, sure. And I've always had a day job. The first 13 years of my writing, fiction, I was working as a lawyer. So it is a balance, but you're right that there's something about doing kind of the same activity that just tires you out.
Yeah. Okay, I get the word here. We got to wrap it. We're going to hang out for another 10, 15 minutes. Please stick around in world. If you're here, big applause for Charles. Thank you so much. Big applause for reading and going here without absolutely awesome. Big thanks to Shyla. Big thanks to Arduin. Who else? Strawberry, of course. Strawberry running the show here, cracking the whip in the background. Patch from Linden Lab, Brett from Linden Lab, all the molds that help on the venue. Marianne McCann customizes the venue. Kralos is customizing avatars. Silas is building avatars. I already mentioned Arduin is building all sorts of things. So thank you, and thank you everyone from the audience. As a reader, I'm in heaven. I say it every week that we actually get people here interested, about the written word, and so that gives me tremendous hope for the future. People are interested in context. People are interested in sort of these semi-long form context and deep conversations. And next week, of course, we have Molly Flatt. Molly Flatt is an author and a journalist. She works in journalism and straddles that line between journalism and writing. She's from the UK. Fascinating conversation where we're going to talk a lot about the business of selling books, because she also works for the bookseller.com. And she is very well versed in this whole how do you sell books. So Charles, you may want to listen to that show.
Yeah, I need to listen to it. I'll probably have to do YouTube because I can never get in because it's always full. But I will be on the YouTube. I'm going to put.
Oh, we will bring a VIP. We're going to reserve a seat. And I was just going to say, I mean, come on, with the Trevor Noah bump. And Oprah. I mean, come on. Well, you weren't on Oprah, but on Trevor Noah, I was actually going to be interested if probably your publisher probably measures that. If there's I don't know how they would measure that. If there's like a sale 12 hours, if the numbers go up 12 hours afterwards after the show. But thank you everyone, and we'll see you next week at 12 o'clock here on the Second Life Book Club.
Thank you.